All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Snow Horse Marketing Podcast. And you are the owner and producer of Canecast Podcasts and Productions, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. And today we'll be talking a little bit about, a big aspect of marketing, which is brand awareness and how using a podcast to scale your social media presence and how important it is. So I'll just start us off with the first question. How important is it to have a podcast in 2023?
I would say it's very important, especially if you're looking for the easiest way to essentially always have a river of content streaming your way. If I was in a classroom right now, I'd ask you to raise your hand if you've ever wondered, what should I post today? Everybody would raise their hand. Everybody struggles with that. When you're thinking about it on a daily basis, what should I post today? I know I should post something. What should I post? It gets really hard to stay consistent. And so podcasting is how you can stay consistent and always have content to pull from and kind of fill that funnel for you.
No, I love that. I know something we do a lot for our clients is create content schedules, create 12-month content schedules with strategies. One thing we always encourage them to use is video, especially Facebook Reels are huge right now. They are blowing up. And having video podcasts really, really help to fill in that data. I know the clients we have who don't have podcasts or don't have some sort of documentation internally, it's really hard to come up with that much video content, and it can get quite expensive to do so. So podcast is a super win-win, very cost-effective way to create a lot of content that they're able to schedule out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it makes it easier time-wise too, because instead of worrying about it every single day, whether it's a 15-minute podcast or a 3-hour podcast, you only have to do it once a week. And you don't even have to do it once a week, but I recommend at least once a week for, the platforms to be happy and satisfied with your consistency and frequency. But 30 minutes once a week on 30 minutes on a Monday, and you're done with your content for a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I love it. And when we get videos from clients, we slice it up. It can create multiple contents, multiple sizes. It's fantastic. So, and lots of great contacts. Another really good thing I've heard is, there's certain phrases that you can look up, using, this is what you should do, or you should look into the, there's certain phrases that you can look up on blogs and other podcasts that people have said, how to have structure sentences. I know one person even does a podcast internally with their own team, and they just talk about topics around their clients, to help their clients improve. And it's great. It's fantastic content.
Of course. Love that.
Yeah. And so I also have heard a lot of, in the last few years, obviously during COVID and the shutdowns, everyone and their dog made a podcast. It felt like everyone was creating a podcast. And a lot of people have asked, is the market too saturated? Is it hard to break into the podcast space?
It would definitely seem to someone who's just getting into it that it's saturated, but it's actually not very saturated compared to other platforms. Blogging, I'd have to pull up the research I did a couple weeks ago to get the exact numbers, but in the ballpark of over 500 million blogs, right? And over 1.2 billion YouTube channels and YouTube videos and stuff. And I think podcasting, I think they just crossed the 1.5 million mark. So 1.5 million to 500 million is a really big difference. And there are not nearly as many podcasts. It's been around a while. People are starting to learn what it is. It's been a few years, gaining popularity over the last 2 or 3 years, but I think we're still just scratching the surface.
Oh, agreed. Well, and you've been working in podcasts and radio for a very long time.
Yes, since 2017.
Yeah, you're getting up there in experience. And I love, you're someone I call when I want advice about podcasts. And so I guess what would you say about like how fast can someone start from zero to being a top percent podcast? And what does that trajectory look like?
Yeah, I would say with the right help, it can be sped up a lot. But if someone was to do it on their own, still, I think it could be within a month or 2 months. So not very long. And what I would recommend, obviously, is doing research at first. Don't just go with the first thing you Google all the time. Do some adequate research. Find what's really going to work for your situation. But once you're at the point where you're posting, really the trick is just to post every single week, whether it's 3 times a week or just once a week. Be consistent in what you decide to post. And after 7 weeks of doing that, you will be in like the top 10% of podcasts, because most podcasts don't make it past 7 episodes. So
Really?
yes. So if you, even just by getting past 7 episodes, you are in like the top 10% of podcasts in the world. And if you're posting past that and going on to 100 and 200 episodes, you quickly climb the charts. And the podcast platforms really, really reward people that have been around a while and have proven their consistency. So really the trick is just being consistent and starting, getting past number 7, and then keeping on a good trajectory. And it's like guaranteed, at least right now, to be one of the top podcasts.
Yeah, where do you recommend? I know there's so many distribution channels and so many people distribute so many places. But if someone's getting started, like should they be on Apple, or like where would you recommend that they put it out so that they can become that consistent voice in that network?
Yeah, definitely. So for anyone who might not know how episodes get out there to Apple and Spotify and stuff, you have to have what's called a hosting platform. And there's a lot of those out there. The two that I recommend the most personally is called Libsyn, and that's Libsyn, Libsyn.com. That's a hosting platform. And then there's Buzzsprout.com. Those two I personally have used a lot and I like the most, but also I think they're two of probably the most recommended throughout the industry. So you've
Yeah.
probably even heard of Libsyn or Buzzsprout if you even looked into podcasting at all. But those two hosting platforms, I recommend going through them. And obviously whatever you can find on there that you can distribute to, distribute it. Do what you need to get your podcast listed. Spotify, it can be kind of simple. You just, select that you want it to go to Spotify. For things like iHeart, it might be a little bit more of a process, but it's worth going through those processes to get your podcast listed on some of those bigger platforms. It's just more exposure, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's incredible. Well, thank you so much, Parker Kane, for joining us today and sharing your expertise about podcasting and using it to leverage content and brand awareness for whatever your cause or business is. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.